Hi, my name is Charlotte and this channel is about my attempt to become moderately competent at art. This week I'm going to be catching up on what I've been doing in my continuing efforts to become competent with digital tools for drawing and painting. If you watched my last video on this topic, you'll know that I worked through the Control Paint rendering package that I had purchased several months earlier, and that having finished that successfully and really enjoyed it, I decided to move on to the Control Paint color package. Just as with the rendering package, there are several different parts to this color bundle. The first part of the package is called Observed Color. And I think more than any other segment, if you have a lot of experience with traditional painting, you would find that this covered a lot of very familiar ground. But for someone like me who has no traditional painting experience whatsoever, this was really useful as it covered the relationships between hue, saturation, and value in detail. So I did a whole bunch of exercises for this. I'll show you some on screen, but to be honest with you, they're not particularly self-explanatory, and I would need just as long as the course took to explain them. So I'll just say that I found this very, very useful, and that I would recommend this to anybody who's new to using color in their art. Part 2 of the bundle is called Grayscale to Color, and it covers something I had really never considered before, which is taking grayscale images with varying values and applying a layer of color over the top. So the instructor walks you through several places where you might want to use this, but it was hard for me to imagine wanting to particularly. I did do some of the exercises. As before, these aren't particularly easy to explain without covering the whole course again, but they're very heavily dependent on using gradient maps in Photoshop. I'm not sure that I was convinced at the end of this segment that grayscale to color is a methodology I'm going to want to really invest a lot of time in learning. I spent most of my time on parts 3 and 4, and I think most people probably would. So part 3 is called Direct Color, and it shows you how to take a simple reference image and create a blocky, unrefined color study based on that reference image. The course itself comes with a pack of 50 reference images that you can use. This subject matter isn't terribly interesting or aesthetically exciting. It's a lot of household objects set against simple backdrops, mostly of draped cloth. So the course recommends doing a lot of these and really putting in the time to learn to see color in all of its nuances within even these simple subjects. I only did 6 of these because my other commitments really took a bite out of my digital painting time this month, but even doing so few of them, I learned so much from doing them. I think the one that drove it home was this candle and light bulb study. It looks so simple, like a couple of very plainly colored objects on a plain background. But as soon as I started to break out just what colors really were in the image, particularly in the candle, I really started to understand the complicated relationships between light and color and backgrounds in a way that I really just don't think I had appreciated before. So I'm not saying I had some like profound perceptual shift as a result of doing just such a very limited number of studies, but I could see where that could happen. I think I was just starting to see the complexity of colors. This is something I definitely want to go back to very soon in order to explore more. The fourth part of the package is kind of a continuation where you take these simple blocky color studies and turn them into a more finished looking still life painting. I, again, only had time for one of these. I chose this study with an apple and an elephant on a simple orangey yellow draped cloth background. I chose this deliberately because although the elephant looks complicated, it's really not, because the form itself is very boxy and each of those planes is fairly consistent in terms of colors. This was another really great learning experience. I'm really glad I did it. It did take me a long time. This is about 3 hours of work to get it to this point, and it's far from being a fabulously rendered still life, but I felt like it was a definite step up from the blocky version which I had previously done. Although I don't think the effort of doing a huge number of them would really be repaid in the way that doing a lot of simple studies would be. The final part of the bundle is part 5. It is called Imaginary Color. I didn't really do anything with this. I watched the videos. I found it really, really interesting. The topic of this section is how to use color and material references for subjects that you've invented. It's probably a little too advanced for the kinds of things that I'm actually doing at the moment, but it was really useful, I think, to see that kind of workflow in action for the future. And I know that I can revisit it, of course, at a later date. So that was everything that I did this month for the color bundle. I really felt like I learned a lot. I wish I had had more time to spend on it, and it just added a whole bunch more things to my to-do list. So when I think about the month ahead, a lot of it is about going back and taking things off that to-do list. So after the rendering month, I kept saying, I want to do more of this. I want to do more value studies. And after doing a few of the color studies, I feel really strongly that I would get a lot out of doing a lot more of those simple still life studies. So I'm going to take the time over the next month to do some of that, to really cement the things that I've learned. I've also got a handful of other much shorter courses that I want to go through. Some are from Control Paint, a couple are from Domestika. I'm not anticipating that those will be as time consuming as the Control Paint packages that I've worked through so far. So I don't think I'm being overly ambitious in thinking I can get through at least some of them over the next few weeks. My other concern is that I still feel really uncomfortable working in Photoshop. So I'm going to really try to dig into setting that up so that I know how to use it, and also figuring out some of the key elements of Procreate. I would say the thing that escapes me most is how to do masking properly in Procreate. I keep looking it up and using it, and then just not apparently being able to retain that information for more than 3 minutes. So I just really need to learn how to use that over the next month so that I have that in hand when I move on to the next thing, which is going to be a lot more challenging in terms of both content and Photoshop and Procreate usage. In the meantime, next week I'm going to come back and talk to you about how I'm doing with portrait drawing. So I hope you have a great creative week. I'll see you next weekend, and bye for now.